It's all about eyesight.
That verse, I felt that way my whole life.
So this is Welcome Change.
By the way, this is the best time I've ever had on the talk
I'm
show.
cool with all the gods. Gods recognize gods.
The only true currency in this bankrupt world is what you share with someone else when you're uncool.
Welcome back, everybody, to Radio Supernova. I am your host, Jordan Grenke. Once again, I'd like to say thank you to the wonderful team at riotradio.ca, especially Dan and Evan from the station. Today on the show, we have Halifax band Beauts. Beauts are a band who play rock songs that are both scrappy and melodic. Oftentimes, they are sacrificing chops for gusto. Beauts songs are full of charismatic and bittersweet hooks and shout-along choruses sometimes. Band members Darryl Smith, Palmer Jamieson, Joel Waddell, Erik Van Lunen, and Jeff Lawton make up the band. Their eagerly awaited debut album, ALANIS, is set to debut on February the 21st. With the recent focus being on a more mellow and melodic approach, the band have prevailed in their search for nuanced and dynamic songs that will still make you want to move. It's evident from recent releases like Good Measure and Drifters All that the band are locked into finding great new layers to their sonic landscapes and discovering innovative ways to more subtly execute their really catchy hooks. On December 30th, 2019, Beauts were included on CBC's 25 Canadian albums to look forward to in 2020. In the company of acts like ALANIS MORRISETTE, Sarah Harmer, Grimes, The WEEKND, JESSIE, REYEZ, and Quiet Parade, look out for Beauts this year to make their big splash on the Canadian music industry. We were joined by Darryl Smith, member of the band, to discuss all things Halifax and all things ALANIS. Darryl, thank you so much for being here, buddy. What was the reaction to being on a list like the 25 Canadian albums to look forward to in 2020?
It was good. I actually didn't know we were on that list until I saw somebody else post about it. Like, I think it was Aquaculture, who's like a local guy that we're not like friends with him, but I know the guy. I was like, oh, that's cool that he made that list. And was like scrolling through it and then found us. And I was like, oh, that's doubly cool that we made that list. I didn't know that happened. So yeah, it felt really good. It's, I always view us as kind of a nothing band from the East Coast. So when you get people like sort of validating what you're doing, it feels nice.
Yeah, because you guys were on there with like Sarah Harmer, Grimes, JESSIE, Quiet Parade were on the list too. There seems to be a lot of sort of like this beautifully building buzz towards the release of ALANIS.
Yeah, I mean, yes. It makes me feel weird, but it's also like we worked really hard on the record. We're really proud of it. We like the songs that we wrote. But, once you'd be disappointed if people didn't like it. There's a weird thing when people do like it and start talking and saying nice things. We're like, well, is this fake or why is this happening? Yeah. So I'm very flattered and I'm really happy that it seems that people care. I just also don't exactly know how to process it, if that makes sense.
No, that does make perfect sense. Has being on a label like LHM, because they're such a supportive and even the stuff they did with Kim Harris, like they're very much like letting their artists do their art without too much pressure. Has being on a supportive label like that affected in a positive way like your whole process with Beauts so far?
Yeah, I mean, well, yes. We know Nigel pretty well, and I basically, when we were working on this record, I went to him. I was like, would you just put out our record? Because I know you and I think you would do a good job. And he was down, which is great. I feel bad because I'm not usually somebody who's behind on deadlines, but we have been behind and he's been very patient with us in terms of like delivering the record and all this stuff. But it's been great. He's been great. And I think that just his like knowledge about how to work it has been super helpful and super beneficial to us. And like, City Loves Me got a lot of traction and that's been great. And I'm hoping that we have another single coming soon called Shut In. I'm hoping that does well.
Oh, nice.
And, it's just been really great. Nigel's great. And, his knowledge and like willingness to put in the work and our ability to eventually deliver what we say we're going to deliver, although a few weeks late every time. has managed to let him do his job.
I think though, if he was to take away, like, look at this stuff, like when Good Measure came out and Drifters All, like, I'm sure when he sees this content finish, he's like, oh yeah, I'm good. I can wait a little longer.
Yeah, and he's been super nice. He wanted to put out Shut in the fall when Drifters came out, and we delivered it to him then. And I'm not trying to be like toot my own horn or anything, but he's like, oh no, I think this song is what we need to push the record around.
Oh,
and
nice.
So like that felt really good, and I think he is like, he's been nothing but supportive, and he's like, this is great. And we've done pretty well on like Radio 3, and they've been really supportive. So like, there's been enough traction with it that like I think
I'm sure this is not anything that you can find through analytics, but like, so we're a campus radio station, and we do this as a podcast as well, and like, there's a legitimate buzz with like the students. Like, there's younger people who I have that I know are listening to the record who showed me the band. Like, so there's a young. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I think there's an unquantifiable swell of support that's going to come that you can't find with like your basic, algorithms or analytics. I think that there's more of a swell than you might think in regards to the band.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, I guess we'll find out once it's out, But that feels really good to hear about. Even when one person tells me, "Hey, I heard your band and I like it," it makes me feel great. So.
I guess because you guys are primarily on the East Coast, I guess it's hard to really, you can't really, phone into Toronto and say, how's everyone doing? You guys hearing our stuff?
Yeah.
Was there a moment professionally that you or the band in its current lineup was really tested the most?
I don't. We've all been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
Like I sort of used to play in a band called Writer's Strike, and then used to tour in a band called Wildlife from Toronto. And three of us, like myself, Joel, and Erik, who played bass and drums, play in Rich O'Coin's touring band, off and on. And so really and Palmer, who is the engineer and does a lot of the recording for our band, he has his own band that he's been doing for a long time. So Jeff is the singer and the guy who writes all our lyrics is kind of the only guy who's new to it. But I guess I don't know that there's been any moment professionally where we're this is too hard. But what I would say is we've seen, I've been at it for 12 years or something, and have seen bands come and go and people have success and not have success. And we are certainly not a successful band by any stretch, but to create a project with friends that I've always kind of viewed as ideally a hobby that pays for itself, and to have people care is been super great. And so I think that turning that corner into sort of we worked really hard on this record. It took a long time. We ended up in a couple different studio spaces that Palmer had a space and then lost that space because in the, inevitable process of gentrification in every city, the building that the space was in came down. He had to find a new space. Him and Joel built that recording space from scratch. We got working there. So it's been about 2 years in the making, and not to mention there's been a lot of sort of personal, not interpersonal stuff. No one's mad at each other. Just
individual.
I lost my dad over this course of this time, and there's been some sickness. Jeff had some stuff going on with him. And so it was never hard to always focus on this. I think it just made us that much more determined to do it, because I think we sort of believed in the songs, and it was a grounding thing that we were able to keep coming back to in spite of all the stuff that was happening in everybody's lives. We were able to keep coming back and working on this, and sort of for me personally, I probably had the most stuff going on. I'm not gonna not that I'm trying to be cryptic.
No.
I just
being honest.
But for me personally, it was really grounding thing to be well, I'm going to the studio and I'm working for 8 hours. Let's get this stuff.
Nice.
You know what I mean? And that felt really good.
I fell down from the mountain. The magic in the air was a substance in my lungs, kicking around. And as the sky empties, oh gravity, I'm unconvinced it's time. Like a car sounding off in ether, sessions, yeah. Will you be there then? Will you be there when I shoot my way out? Tonight, 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 tonight.
I guess so. It's this when this record comes out, will it even feel like a debut record for you?
I think that's the only, like, in spite of all the work I've done forever in every band, like, it's the only thing that I've put out when we meant to put it out that is like a full-length record. You know what I mean? Like, so with my old band and stuff, like, we finally released, like, a full-length record that we probably had complete in, like, 2012. But, like, we just sat on it and sat on it. So it's finally coming out, and that feels good. And we're, like, going to play some shows around it. I don't know how many or what we're going to do, but we're still an active band when the records come out, which is, like, the most, for me, is great.
It's like a scheduled release. This is the first one you've had that's like, it's coming out this day, we have promo behind it, we're doing this. Yeah, I totally understand what you mean.
Yeah, and we will play a release show, and we will have records that you can buy, things like that.
And merch, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's amazing. And again, I know we're a little bit pressed for time here, and I do appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this, my friend. So have you guys heard Beauts stuff on the radio? And if you have, do you know where you were or like what you were doing the first time you heard it?
I definitely have. I can't remember where or when, but I always describe that feeling as like the same as when your name gets called to go to the principal's office in high school. Like, I feel like I'm in trouble somehow. So they were like, it's a weird, like, mildly embarrassing thing when it happens. We're like, oh, that's my band. And I feel awkward now.
And then you look around, you're like, well, no one knows I'm in this band. I can get away with this. Yeah.
I can't. I have heard it. Can't remember when, but that's the feeling that it elicits every time. Because it takes, like, 2 to 5 seconds to kick in where you're like, I know this song.
Oh,
and you're
right,
like, wait a minute, that's why I know this song. And then you just feel silly a little bit.
The stories are usually, they're so sparse. Some people are like, oh, I was standing in a doctor's office and they had CBC on and my song came on. Someone else had mentioned that they specifically went to the radio at the time they were told they were going to hear it. And I'm like, oh, it's not the same, man. You gotta be surprised by when it comes on. That's the way it is. Yeah. Do you, again, like, thank you very much for doing this. I'm personally pumped for the record. And
we'll have to make sure we get you like a promo copy. Well, you'll get promo copies at Station anyway, but we'll send you a record or something. If you want
that'd be
one.
great, man. No, and I'll play the absolute shit out of it. So I love the stuff I'm already hearing, and I'm so glad, so thankful for Justin in my class to being like, I think you would like that, because he looks at me like I'm the guitar guy. I like guitar music, so I would like this song, and I'm like, that's so don't you pigeonhole me. This is great, actually. What is this? I do like, and then I was off to the races from there. But do you guys plan on doing a full scale like Canada wide, or just keep it local for now, see what happens?
I don't know that we fully have it planned. I think if like a tour presented itself that made sense for us to do, we'd definitely do it. Yeah. We're all like a bit older. I like just had a kid. So
congratulations, man. Speaking of stuff in your life, that'll be the big one.
But like, my wife is not super like, you should just go out for a month. So got to figure that part out. But if there was like a week or 2 week thing that made sense for us to do, I think we'd all love to do it. We just got to think about what that might look like.
Yeah, a small run, maybe. If only they planned tours. If only they planned tours on just weekends. Like, how about you just go away on weekends and do like weekend gigs as a touring act? Well, listen, Darryl, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you doing this. You got the full support from me and the station and lots of people in my class about the record coming out. I guess you guys are still shooting for February?
Yeah, I think it's going to be February 21, but it'll be out then. Yeah,
that's amazing, man. Well, listen, all the best with the lead up, and send our regards to Darryl, Palmer, Joel, Erik, Jeff. Tell everybody we said hi, and we appreciate the time today, Darryl.
Yeah, appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, guys. Take care. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. That is Darryl from the Halifax-based band Beauts. We really appreciate Darryl taking time out of his day, like he was talking about during the interview. They are ramping up for their debut release for their album Dalliance, which is due out on LHM Records on February the 21st. It must be a chaotic time for them. You got to think of all the little things that bands have to do. It's from the outside looking in, it's really cool to say, you know, okay, Wicked, we got in the room, we wrote all these songs, we found the parts, we got everything together, and now it's time to just, you know, show it to the world, upload it online, and that's it. It's not really that simple. You know, there's a lot of decision making as far as things, even something that people don't normally think about, where, you know, songwriting credits. Is the guitar lead as important as the hook? And people in bands, and there's a lot of internal stuff that can happen, and a lot of like small decisions that need to be made. Think of it as if you're getting married, and you know that you got to buy rings, you got to invite your friends, you got to have a venue, and you know you got to find you got to write your vows, right? But you got to get an ordained minister, you've got to get centerpieces, you've got to get decor, you've got to have a theme, you got to choose a photographer, you have to get you know, music, you have to have an itinerary, you have to go for there's all these other little things. For a band, when they have an album, it's the same thing, the same similar song and dance. You know, there are songwriting credits, artwork, there are you know, there's X amount of weeks you need before you load your stuff on Spotify for Spotify to be able to release it. It isn't just you load it up that day. There's all these different things, and even with the record label, there's a lot of stuff that each individual member of the band have to do. So when I say that I'm thankful for their time, I am genuinely thankful for their time. You know, they're one of the most hyped indie bands of this year, and they're very well known individually in the industry through the indie circuit, and it's almost like this new collective. And if you've heard the material that we played on the show just now, I mean, the quality of their output certainly makes them deserving of all this attention. So we really appreciate them doing that. A bit of a short episode this week on Radio Supernova, but again, we want to say thank you very much to Beauts. I want to give a big shout out to my good friend Chris from Milton, Chris Bell. He was one of the first people to tune into the show on Apple Podcasts, which we are now on. And I wanted to give a special shout out in case he's listening to give him a big thank you. He's been one of my biggest supporters for my entire life. So what up to Chris Pell? If you're from Milton, go spend all your money at Crawford's Garden Center. Anyways, everybody, that's it for us. Have a great week, and we'll be back with new content as soon as humanly possible. Until then, stay young.